Okay. Whew.
That's perfect timing. I
Jay?
just texted.
Crazy. Sorry about
It's gonna happen.
that. I got playing around and
right when I sent it.
Yeah, well, I was playing around. I couldn't. It's been so long since we've done it. YouTube changed their whole format, so I had to try to find out.
Burn.
YouTube got me.
Where's B? It's good to see you, man.
It's good to see you too. I don't know. She should be here any second, I guess.
Yeah, she's late.
I sent her a thing. Let me double check and make sure I sent her.
And so, what? One of those texts you said you're teaching something.
I did teach something.
Congratulations! That's awesome.
Thanks, man. I was just I was filling in for a professor at UIW, so it was cool.
That is cool.
So it was nice to finally do that. So
put them in, coach.
Yeah, exactly. I liked it. I was like, oh, I gotta do this more. So we'll see.
Yeah, right when you put your feet in the door, that's what happens. That's awesome. That's
what I'm hoping.
That's cool.
The students were terrible.
Totally their fault.
They had no reference point for what we were doing. I was talking on like Bible and spirituality.
Yeah.
Or the Bible and Christian spirituality. And they knew almost nothing about the Bible and maybe less about spirituality. I was like, wow. That was rough.
Haven't they heard of Evanescence?
One of them had a Nirvana t-shirt, and I'm like, you don't listen to Nirvana. And she goes, this is my boyfriend's t-shirt. I was like, okay. This makes more sense.
That makes sense.
Not because girls can't listen to Nirvana, B. I think girls can listen to Nirvana.
Was it more of an age thing? Are you talking about young people?
She was like 19 and was wearing like the rest of her outfit made it very clear that she did not listen to Nirvana. And she had like the Nirvana shirt was like a pressed, like brand new Nirvana shirt. Like, yeah,
like
there's
super bright.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, that's the color yellow it was supposed to be. I was like, yeah, there's no way.
Fading.
I had the exact opposite experience last night. There's a girl at the worship service that had a Misfits t-shirt on. I'm like, you don't listen to the Misfits. And she rolled up her sleeve and she had a Misfits tattoo. yes, I raise you. I do listen to the Misfits.
She might get that a lot, actually.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, crazy. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Doing well. Tired, but good. B, it's so good to see you.
I know.
It's been a long time. I'm actually trying to do. I'm not going to do work right now. I'm going to put this away.
There we go. I like that.
Okay, are we doing 5 things?
Yeah. That was another text I was going to bring up.
Oh, man.
We bring up 5 things.
Yeah.
Are we doing B-sides?
All right, so here's listen. Okay, stop whining. Just listen to it for a second.
Tell me the theory.
I thought it 8 things just in case.
Okay, good. One of the things that I know was getting frustrating for Bianca, because she brought it up, was because she does not hide her frustrations, which is
what are you trying to say?
One of the things that she brought up that I know, and I think she's right, is that she didn't want this to be just her calendar every time.
Yeah.
And so when we keep it at 3 things, it's possible for that to be her calendar. But my theory is if we go back to 5, then it does not. However, I thought if we did 5, we could just cut the ranking at the end. Right? Like, so Jason, you and I used to do 5. Yeah. We never did any ranking. The other thing is, if we go to 5, I was pretty sure that at some point we would overlap enough on them that we could control the time that way. But I don't know. And I like the people who listen to this podcast, the 4 of them really felt sort of gypped when we got away from doing 5. They're like, how do we get less when we have more people? I was like, I don't know math.
Sure.
So anyway, so I thought we'd just try it. That's,
Okay.
Let's try it.
If we do overlap, we don't need to choose another one.
We don't have to choose. And then on top of it, I think one of yours every time could be a B-side if you want it to be.
Okay. No, we don't have to do that. I mean,
Yeah, but I love the idea. Like, I love that you just ask us like an out of the box kind of question, which is kind of fun. So that could we could just work it in somehow. That's what I
see.
Okay. You know I mean? It doesn't have to be after the end. It doesn't have to be.
Start with it.
Well, Jason does that sometimes too. He does a J side, and he just asks a question of both of us. And
yeah. Well, that's the thing. And if we don't have like, I'm not sure the structure was helping us. Is the point of the story. So I wanted to try it again with less structure and see how that goes. And if this doesn't help us either.
Counterpoint, it was really great, and so was top 5, and this is going to be great too.
There we go. It was 5 best, but still, I appreciate the counterpoint. It's still going to be this week in gratitude. We're not going to change that all around or mess up people's anything. It's just we have more than 3 things we're grateful for. We can share those things, and we just
Are you going to explain it up top to the?
Sure. And you never liked the competitive part anyway, B.
No,
so
I didn't.
This feeds into your lefty, everybody gets harmony, trophies mentality.
One of my 5 strengths is harmony.
I love the ranking part because it just was a weekly confirmation that Bianca loves me more than Greg.
Listen,
now I'll just text that.
Yeah, and I know we're gonna miss that, but I know there's gonna be this like side texting that happens the whole time. I'm like, oh, yours is way better, Jason. Yours is way better.
Good pick, Jay. Actually, I could go back since I recorded everyone's answers and be like, yeah, 95% of the time,
it's an absurdly high number. Even when it was obviously not better. That's the part that hurts the most. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm going to, when I post this, I'll post this as episode or as season 3, episode 1. So this will be a new season for us.
Okay.
Because we changed the format and all that. I think it'd be fun. Nobody cares. I'm just telling you guys. That's what
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
My parents will be very excited.
Okay, good. Well, that's exciting. All right, so I'll do the intro. I do like the thing where I do the intro and then somebody else actually starts us, though.
Oh, okay. I have it on my phone today, so let me do this.
And I do want to keep the rotating the intro unless B just wants to do it every time because I think people will miss B doing it. That's the.
We can alternate that, just not today.
All right, so I'll do the intro. B, you go first.
Okay.
And then Jason, you go after B, then I'll go last, and then we'll just work the background. All right.
Excellent.
Woo! All right, everybody, welcome to This Week in Gratitude. We are glad to be with you. We are grateful to be with you. I guess that works. I'm going to start over because I'm already lost my train of thought.
Also, you should keep that woo in there.
You think so? Yeah. That's a good one?
Yeah.
I think you're being sarcastic, but I'm going to do it anyway.
No, I like it. I don't do sarcasm.
Oh, yeah, you don't do sarcasm?
Yeah.
All right. That seems like a lie. Woo! There you go, B. Welcome to This Week in Gratitude. We are glad you are with us. We're glad to be together again. This is the start of season 3. This is episode 1, and we are joining you from all over the country. I am in San Antonio, Texas. My name is Greg. I'm with Jason Griffiths from Los Angeles, California, and Bianca Quezada from Seattle, Washington. Thank you guys for joining me. How are you guys doing?
Woo! Doing well. Woo!
Awesome. Before we get rolling, we got a few changes we're making to season 3. This is the equivalent of when old 80s sitcoms would add a new cast member. That's essentially what we're not adding a cast member, but we are changing our format completely. So we're going to go back to our old school format where we each have 5 things that we're grateful for, and we'll talk about those together. We tell everybody what we're grateful for, and then we talk and kind of see where everybody fits, and we learn some things. We get excited about some things, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. And if you do enjoy it, we need you to do a couple of things on your end. One is subscribe to the podcast. It'll make sure that you get new ones on the off chance we post new ones ever. You get those right away. And then tell your friends, because that's how this thing grows, and we eventually can get t-shirts out of it. We've had almost exactly 4,000 downloads of this podcast in our history, which is not very many. It's one of those, it's sort of like when somebody says, like, I made, $60,000 last year. And it's like, oh, that's awesome. How many hours did you work? And it's like, oh, that's not good. Like, don't do the math. Like, don't figure out how much you actually make per hour. That's not good. Just know that you're excited about 4,000 downloads. That's the key.
Work harder and get paid less.
Don't divide it by the 3,040 episodes we've done or whatever. That doesn't. That's nice. We haven't done that many. All right, but I'm excited to be here. It's been a while. It's been a long summer. We have not chatted in a long time, and so we're excited to be back together talking. So, Bianca, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I was thinking this is more like when Jeopardy changes their background every once in a while. This isn't adding in a cousin.
That's better. That's better.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's better.
New Jeopardy background season. We hope you like it. So my first thing is, I'll just do it in the order I thought of these. I didn't really say best to worst. Maybe I will next time. But I was thinking how much I love the app WhatsApp because I have a sister that lives abroad. And so we can keep in touch as a family. I mean, my brother lives about an hour and a half away, but he could very well just be abroad to me. Sometimes it'll be months between when I see him. So this WhatsApp keeps us all together. I mean, we're as a family, we're on a thread that we submit to like at least 2 or 3 times a week, just keeping in touch. And then recently, my sister, she's in Beijing, China, for the next 2 years, and I don't want to give out too much information. But she just recently posted sent us all of these pictures of all these trips that she's taking around Beijing. And I just can't believe she's living that life. And so it just keeps me connected to what she's doing. Maybe not day to day, because that would be too hard. And I'm sure her life looks a lot different over there. But these trips and seeing her friends and just keeping in touch in general. I appreciate WhatsApp in particular, but generally it's to keep my family tied together.
That's cool.
Really cool.
How long until you go visit her?
Well, she's coming home for Christmas, so ideally it would be February, but I would have just seen her. So it could be February 2019 or sometime winter 2020. She'll still be there.
She might not know this, but our podcast is huge in China.
If she could only download it.
That'd be so funny. That would be so awesome.
I'm actually a celebrity. Oh, she would love that. She goes halfway around the world and there's my face everywhere.
Jason, do you use WhatsApp ever?
I haven't. I've never used it.
It's pretty awesome. I'll give you a scenario where it's not great, B, because this is tied to my.
Okay, let's get negative.
I have no. That's just what I do. So I have.
Yeah, we needed a little negativity this morning.
So my son, Josh, went to Germany this summer to play soccer.
Yeah.
And we had talked about that like a long time ago, but we used WhatsApp to keep up with his team. And so there were like 15 or 20 parents who went over to Germany also. And so they used it to tell us what was going on. And when you're getting 4 updates every second or something, and pictures of other people's kids, it's like, I don't care about these people.
No, it's got to be 5 or less.
Yeah, I agree. But I love the idea of a family using it well. That's really cool. Because I used it and I was like, oh, there's so much stuff here. That's really cool. And it's like, I just don't want to hear from everybody all the time. But I like your settings better. If you haven't used it, Jason, WhatsApp is a cool app.
It's for international and even some friends in Canada, which, they're not that far, but I mean, it's using wireless.
Yeah, it uses Wi-Fi. It doesn't cost you anything.
Perfect.
It's really cool. It's a cool feature. Cool app.
Anyway, that's my number one. Or that's just my first one. It's my first.
Just your family connecting to each other. I like that.
Yeah. Just a little thing. My first one is I picked up that book, The Pastor by Eugene Peterson. Started it like 2 or 3 years ago. Then I picked it up again. I finished it finally, but that's not my in his narrative. He's just talking about Saint John of the Cross, and he says, most people know him as Dark Night of the Soul guy that came out with a book, Dark Night of the Soul, but he's actually deemed like the best poet of his time from Spain or wherever he was at, and so I picked up a book of his poetry. Just because fall's coming around, and I'm starting to feel like I love getting into poetry and that kind of jazz. I'm artsy. I'm a Renaissance man.
I'm artsy.
I'm artsy. I deem myself.
Surprised if that's the name of this episode.
But I honestly, he's a phenomenal poet, and it's really cool. I just picked some up from the library and been reading poems. And
what was it again, Jason?
Saint John of the Cross, like he can. I remember in my psychology class at Fuller, he coined the phrase like Dark Night of the Soul, and it's like a
which is the best
spiritual.
Batman movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I thought it was like all the song St. John of the Cross was known for, but Eugene Peterson. I was just stoked that Eugene Peterson.
That's a good tip, man. I didn't know that.
And then I stumbled across this book. It's a little like new agey, like crystally, I don't know, weird gut feeling, but it's Love Poems from God, and it has some St. John of the Cross poems, and it has some of St. Francis of Assisi poems and stuff. It has all these dudes. They always and there's also Teresa of Avila. I haven't read any of her poems yet, but I'm looking forward to it. But it's neat to think that David. I think it's like a just a piece of, if you're a follower of God, you read the Psalms, you get addicted to lament, or you get addicted to like songs and writing, like creating with your words, poems, and it's neat to see that there's a whole world that I hadn't really realized was it's a no duh, kind of like, yeah, obviously all these guys and girls probably were writing poems, but you always you hear about the arguments and the fights about theology and that kind of jazz instead of what these guys and girls and women were writing artistically.
I think that's like there's something about a people who are shaped and gathered around and held under the authority of the word that forces you to care about words, right?
Yeah,
And poetry is sort of the height of that for us as a people. It feels like.
That's true. That's good.
Bianca, I met a poet this summer who lives up by you guys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's amazing. Have you guys ever read Scott Cairns?
Mm-mm.
No, I don't read poetry, but maybe Jason's inspiring me.
Cairns.
Mm-hmm.
Cairns. Okay.
He's an Orthodox guy, and but he writes these brilliant. I think he lives in Seattle, but he writes these brilliant poems, and they're not all brilliant, but he has a book that just came out called Slow Pilgrim, which is his collected works, and there's a couple in there that are just fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and believe it or not, Jason, that was actually on my top 5. So
no.
Yeah, so I get that one. I wasn't gonna go first. I wasn't gonna go first, but it follows Jason's perfectly. So it's like I gotta chime in there.
That's golden.
That's awesome.
And we should probably do our obligatory shout out to Wendell Berry, because he's the guy that got me into poetry.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, and we haven't talked about him yet on this podcast, which will happen.
Right. Okay.
All right, so wait. Oh, let's do this. This would be good, Bianca.
Yeah.
You don't read poetry at all.
I don't.
I read poetry a little bit, and Jason reads poetry maybe more than me.
It's seasonal. It's weird.
Yeah, it is seasonal. That's true. What's the what's a good like launch pad for her? Like, what's a good like?
I like Wendell Berry. I mean, I've definitely read Wendell Berry, if that counts. But
his poems?
Probably not.
All right, I'm gonna go there. I think the first one you should start with is Wendell Berry.
Okay.
Me too.
Just pick up his collected poems.
Yeah. He came out with a book it's called This Day or something like that, I think.
He's got a bunch of them. They sell them in collections though, and that's always a little easier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But his best poem is Mad Farmers Liberation Front.
Mm-hmm. I've read a few of those. Isn't that a series?
Yeah. There's a couple of them, yeah.
Yeah. I think I read those. Well, Jason had it on his bookshelf once, and I think I read it.
Nice.
For a summer. Okay, poetry, man.
Poetry. All right, Bianca's hooked. She's gonna report back to us next week.
Okay, should I go on to my next one?
Yeah, you might as well.
So I don't know if you knew this, but Pearl Jam has been playing some concerts this summer.
Oh my God. Well, we got Wendell Berry out of the way, and now we get.
I know, this is what I like. And so they came, two of my favorite things, Pearl Jam at Safeco Field, where the Seattle Mariners play. And they came for 2 nights in August, and I went to both of them, and it was amazing. And they were very good shows. And actually, for the second show, this has never happened before in my 16 Pearl Jam shows, but I went with someone who's not admittedly a Pearl Jam fan. And so I got to tell her all the cool things about being a Pearl Jam fan. And we went out to dinner before with my very fanatic friends. And so it was just cool to see like Pearl Jam through a new person's eyes. I've been following them for years and years and years. So that was a new experience and she loved it. And I don't think we've converted her 100%, but they put on such a good show. Anyone would agree. And they played a couple other baseball stadiums that I watched streaming live, some of them, and it was just really fun. And that's got to be on my top 5 because it was a great summer for that. That's
awesome.
it.
That's hilarious. I love that you use the word conversion for that experience. That's exactly what it sounds like.
From a non-believer to a believer.
That's right. Oh my gosh.
Okay, that's all I have to say about that. We can move on to the next.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about Pearl Jam too long.
I know. Once again, not something we bring up too often on this podcast. So,
be a highlight of the show, like a song or like.
I'm always surprised at how much I get into Porch. I've been hearing Porch since 1998, but for whatever reason, it's still a banger. And they like. I don't know. It's not even my favorite song. My favorite song is Given to Fly, which they did play. But when I hear Porch, I just, they speed it up for the live shows and it's just amazing. And the whole crowd's into it. And they also did a Tom Petty cover. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on it, even though I recorded it. I can't remember. Anyway, just to honor Tom Petty and,
that's cool.
Yeah, they did a Pink Floyd "Comfortably Numb," which was awesome. And,
hands down, the king of cover.
No question.
Yeah, you guys have both made this argument repeatedly.
He will take the lamest sounding song and make it sound so cool. Yeah, agreed. We've said it before, and we'll say it again.
Yeah, you will keep it. I know that for a fact. Hey, B, I heard a crazy Pearl Jam fact. You guys probably already know this one.
Oh, let's hear it.
What was their name going to be before they came up with Pearl Jam?
Mookie Blaylock.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That made me laugh so hard.
It's the name of a basketball player, and then he told them to stop using his name.
That made me laugh so hard when I heard that. I was like, I had no idea.
Yeah, and I think his number was 10.
I think I heard that from Ken Tremendous, but I can't remember from
Ken Tremendous. That's not his real name.
I know, but I can't not call him that. In my head, it's always Ken Tremendous.
Yeah, he's a Pearl Jam fan.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. What came up.
Michael Schur.
I think they used to do like hidden shows under Mookie Blaylock still. I heard of when they first came out with 10, they were tour. My buddy Bill, who's a huge Pearl Jam fan also.
Oh, back in the day. Okay. I thought you meant now. Yeah.
When they first did 10, they would play in Santa Cruz and they'd play under the name of Mookie Blaylock.
Oh, that's good.
People would show up. It was cool. All right. 2. My 2.
Yes.
Just as I was leaving McGrath and moving west back to California, I've already said that they just treated me like a king and a prince, and they just poured love on me like crazy. And it was a healing experience. But they said, do you have any advice for us? Do you have any like thoughts? And I said, I'd prayerfully think about maybe hiring Andre, this African-American Baptist pastor, and I'd prayerfully discern and think about or uniting with the Presbyterian church up the street, First Presbyterian of Muskegon, whose head pastor is a guy named Reverend Jim Roush. And he's like a good combination of, he's a little bit me and a little bit more Midwest. And I got a letter today that honestly brought me to tears on Monday, that they're moving forward. They're going to unite. They're going to bring McGrath and First Presbyterian Church of Muskegon as one body, as one local outpost of the kingdom. And it just floored me. I was just like, that is so cool. I didn't get credit because like always, because it's funny because it brought me back to the John Gooch. I got John Gooch's album in the mail, and he thanks you. He thanks you, Greg, and he doesn't even thank me. I was like, what the heck? What the heck?
That's hilarious. Really?
But, yeah.
I should probably get that album.
Yeah, Greg doesn't even have it. What a mentor you are, Greg.
So the first reaction was, "I'm blown away. That's amazing." And the second, they credit it to Don Maddox, which I think deserves all the credit. The guy that he was in it. He was one of the most gracious of just the leadership of McGrath that poured. So I jokingly say like I was get credit. I didn't really want credit. I really do think that Don DeLong should get the credit. I think I said Don Maddox, but that's another one of my highlights or whatever. But so just praise God. I'm praying for they have the committee of like a mix of the churches that are like making steps, and like they're planning dinners together, they're planning conversations together. It's blowing me away. It's like, oh man, that's awesome. So anyway, cool. Floored by the unity of the church. Actually, I think that's the first. It's one of the first. It's the first I've been involved in, and I think I've only heard of other churches closing their doors and kind of
handing it off on the way.
Handing it off or like combining forces. Yeah. This is the first. They're two healthy congregations that are going to they would keep going separate.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So just
I don't think I've ever heard of that. I'm with you on that one, Jason. I think that's brand new.
That's awesome. I think God be praised. I'm just stoked.
I love that. B, have you ever seen that before?
Let me think. I wasn't thinking about that. No, I just know a lot of like church plants. They just start a new thing.
Like on a bigger scale, it happened, I think, in the PCUSA, right? Didn't they split over, women ordination and then come back together? And that's why the PC and the USA are in the USA's in parentheses.
PSA.
That might be that might be true. That may be true.
It's the idea though that it's two healthy churches that are making the choice to do it that's what's unique about it for sure.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. I'm gonna go to my second one, which is totally unrelated to those ones, but Bianca, the Brewers are in the playoffs.
I know.
Which is like it's the first time since 2011 I can actually get excited about the Major League Baseball playoffs. The last series of the year. Right now, we're a half a game back behind the Cubs. Going into the last series, the Cardinals play the Cubs 3 times, and then they have one game today that they play. So we might be a game back going into Friday. But man, that's going to be fun. That's exciting.
I know. I'm sure it feels great. I've never actually.
It's awesome, B. You should try it.
Oh, man.
Listen.
Congratulations.
Thank you, B.
You've got some good players too. I mean, it'll be exciting.
It should be good. We're a good team. I don't know, what that means when you get to the playoffs, actually, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'd be more excited if we could figure out how to win the division, because then we automatically get like the best of 5 instead of if we go as a wild card, we might just be done right away, which would
it's a one-off.
Just one bad day.
Yeah.
So I don't want that.
I know. Congratulations. Are you going to go to any of the games? Do you think you'll go home at all?
I'm pretty confident I'm not.
Oh, okay.
That's a hard no.
It's a long way away, and it costs a lot of money. So I think I could actually get tickets, but I don't know that I could actually get there to see the game. So, but it'd be cool. It'd be fun to be in Milwaukee right now because of the energy in that city when that team's good is a lot of fun. So. But so awesome. Everybody watching, unless you have a team that's in, which most of you guys do not, just root for the Brewers.
Do it.
They're great. Fun. It'll be a good, fun exercise.
Have you ever been in town when they're winning?
No. I've only seen videos and stuff, and I have friends who live there, so they tell me how crazy it
is. Yeah, I think it might be. I don't know. Anywho.
Jason wants you to go.
Yeah.
I know he does. Listen, I didn't say I didn't want to go.
I know. You got people. You got
once in a lifetime.
You got people.
Let's not talk about it as once in a lifetime. That's the other problem. There's no reason we can't go next year too, right? Like, come on now. Let's just build a team that's good for a while. We could do that.
That's really funny.
Yeah. That's how I see it.
But that's my fun sports one. I'm locked in on that one.
Nice.
So that one's good.
Okay. Sports, man. Okay, I'll go to the next one. And so it's actually a few things, but I'm gonna put them all as one category. But
We've been apart for a while. We've been
not weird, not weird. So like one thing is just kind of stepping into someone else's life, but not having to take on the whole thing. So like I dog sat this summer, cat sat, and I take some kids to school in the morning, and it's good to like jump in and be in that person's house and like live their life for a minute. But about 5 days in, I'm like, yeah, I want to go now. And then I don't want a dog anymore. I don't want that cat. I really don't want 4 kids to be taken to school. And it also has to do with I went to see some friends in DC and San Francisco this summer too, and it's just cool to like see their everyday lives, you know, like, oh, this is where our daughter goes to daycare, and like I haven't seen them in years, or you know, going to DC and just seeing all the new things since I've moved away. And it's like I just enjoy kind of putting a toe into like a different scene for a little bit and then coming back to what I've got going on. So and that happened a lot this summer, where it was like just stepping into someone else's lifestyle. Anyway, so I am grateful that I get the opportunity to do that. That I have friends that trust me with their loved ones, but also that I could go and travel and see, you know, not just what my friends post on Instagram or what they want people to know, but actually like live their day-to-day life with them for a little bit. Kind of like when I go visit, you know, when sometimes I visit the Griffiths or go down to San Antonio, and it's just like, I'll go for a few days so I can, we don't have to do all the touristy things and go to the most expensive restaurant. I just want to see like, how do you do your day to day? You know, what is life like for you normally? And so I got the opportunity to do that this summer a bunch. Anyway, I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome.
I love that you do it. Like, and I think that's been a part of my top 5, and I think it's been a part of Greg's top 5.
Yep.
That's a really cool thing about knowing you and being loved by you. You're really good at that. Being intentional, just sitting in front of people and finding out what they're doing. That's wicked good.
Hey, I will say too, Bianca, that this is we say this every once in a while, and I think you always think we're kidding, but this is one of your gifts to families that you can provide, because like as somebody with like 4 kids, I can't show up at somebody's house to watch them and see how their life normally works. My kids ruin whatever their normal life is. That's what kids do.
That's what kids do. That should be on our first shirt.
Kids ruin lives.
That's what they do.
But your ability to do that and to be part of it and to watch it as it's a huge blessing from the other side of that conversation. As a married guy with kids, that's a huge thing for us, and I think it's a huge part of the kingdom. It's why we're not supposed to just sort of silo off into youth and adults and singles and married. Like, we're supposed to share life together that way.
Yeah, agreed.
I love that one, B. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, my third one. I don't know if I've shared this one already. I think I have, but it's a little different now. I in beginning of August, I took my son to the first concert. It's called the band is the Kills. It's the Alison Mozart, the girl that Jack White teams up with in
Dead Weather.
Yeah, and at first it was. At first, I think my gratitude is found in lessons that you learn that you didn't like. You think you're going to learn one thing and you learn something totally different. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. I took my son, and I was envisioning my dad taking me to a concert. You know, like, and I thought I would be blessed just because I would receive like the joy of like seeing him come alive, you know, like I did, like when I was first going to concerts and stuff like that. It was just it brought life to me, like concerts. And the live music thing did not bring my son to new life. Like he you know, like it wasn't like it wasn't his jam, you know, it wasn't his bag. And at first I was a little disappointed, but then it just brought up conversations, and I was like, you know, like how was that and all this stuff. and it just circled around to me and my son connecting on watching him play Fortnite and just talking about video games and just listening to him and meeting him where he gets excited and where he becomes fully alive. And it taught me how unique my child is. It just taught me. I saw a sliver into God's creativity of. No, he's not going to be exactly like you. He's not going to. And thank God. I don't know. I can't wait for the day that Elsie turns. Because she's going to.
She might actually like live concert.
She's gonna go nuts. I'm gonna have to.
This is my new life, Dad.
But you gotta pray for me too, because she's gonna be freaking people and bumping and grinding like.
Oh boy.
She's just crazy, but but I do like it. God taught me, like, it was just a different lesson, and I in a way, like, they're painful because like you got to grow a little bit, you got to learn a little bit, and you have to be humble a little bit. But in the end, they're so much richer, like the lessons. It just brought me back to all the times that I thought I was doing this for this reason, but I learned something totally different. That might be a little, I don't know, not grounded enough or whatever.
No, that's a good one.
That's have you ever have you had that experience recently? Like, you've gone into something and you're
I think it's like a life experience, like being alive.
Yeah, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
I had a professor who used to say, like, his like big teaching point was you never do only one thing. And his point was, like, no matter what it is you're trying to do, you're also doing all these other things that maybe you don't intend.
Yeah.
And I think what all that your story reminds me is that if you're aware enough, you'll learn those other things too, right? That you thought you were doing this for your son, but in fact, like, it opens up this whole other areas of possibility. That's cool, man. That's a really important one. All right, as per like this one like ties into my next one. I was gonna save this for last because it's gonna get emotional and awkward, but and I love both those things so much that I'll just go now because otherwise I won't do it. We lost a super important student in our program named Alan Amaya, and he died on Friday night in Dallas, and just this like. He got caught in a flash flood, and it's just kind of a brutal story. And so he was part of our program for the whole time he was at UIW, and then he got a PhD full ride thing to go learn math at UT Arlington. So he's a super brilliant guy, really good soccer player, really good athlete, really amazing leader, and he really, really loved Jesus. And so he kind of picked his PhD program based off of students that he knew and places he knew he could find Jesus. And so he worked at camps in the summertime. He played soccer all the time. He mentored my guys, my kids. So Josh and he were pretty close. They played soccer together a bunch, and he helped Josh get through calculus or pre-cal. And so just the guy that we really loved. And so Monday night we did a memorial service, and this is where it ties into yours, Jason. The idea was, it wasn't really a memorial service. We wanted to do something that was just give students a chance to be sad together and kind of create some space. And we ended up getting, I don't know, 250 students or something crammed into this little building. And I realized like halfway through it that one of the reasons this was so hard is because everybody I knew was grieving at the same time. And that was tough. And then I realized when we were doing this worship service, I had a worship leader come in who didn't know him so that we could actually do some kind of worship, because I think otherwise it would have been impossible. And as we were doing worship, I realized, like, in that moment, that the one thing I thought I was doing was not the thing I was doing. And it was exactly what you're saying, Jason.
Yeah.
Where it's like, let's have this memorial service so I can be sad about Alan, and I can create space for everybody else to be sad about Alan. And then we got singing praises, and it's like, oh man, like, I'm actually praising Jesus right now. This is not what I expected to be doing. And then in hindsight, obviously I can look back on that and be like, yeah, of course that's what God has in mind. Right. But that's but it's one of those where you think you're doing this one thing, but you're actually doing this other thing entirely. So that ended up being really important for me. And I'm super gracious for the chance to gather with all of those people that I didn't know, a bunch of people I didn't know, a bunch of people I did know, and to just be sad together, but also to sing together and be hopeful together and be reminded of the resurrection together. And so that was really important for me. So I don't know.
Would you mind if I tied in another one to that and then?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because one of mine was going to be this guy I'm discipling is Jesse James Martinez, and he lost his father 2 weeks ago, and my gratitude is he wanted to be isolated, and so last night I went and found him, and I just hung out with him, and I dragged him to a worship service, and then dragged him to this discipleship group, but it was so the same thing. It was the church in that respect is the most amazing entity. It's beauty. It's amazing because the woman preaching had lost her mom that year. Everybody had all these stories, and then we went to the discipleship group, and a bunch of people had lost their dads, and it was just a connecting on the ground level, and then the worship is so genuine. It's so raw,
Yeah, raw is exactly the word I was thinking, Jason. That's and we had, it was a weird thing, and it was just something we threw together, and I had my whole team from the past 5 or 6 years come together to try to help do it, and they were all really amazing, but it was like the rawness of it. And then the other thing, you guys know me well enough to know that I can get in my own head about I can be cynical about things sometimes. I don't know if you know that about me.
Not kidding.
But it wasn't until it was I knew I had these students who were hurting, and I knew I was hurting, and I thought we should have this worship service where we can be sad together. And we planned the whole day, and it wasn't until I got to the service that night that I thought to myself, oh man, am I doing this just because I'm being completely selfish? Is this just something I need to do for me? And then I realized, obviously that wasn't the case, but it was that was a good 30-hour window where I never once even questioned why we were doing it, which that's a new record for me. So positively. I will say also, having emotions as close to the forefront as they were this last weekend and this week. People who do that all the time are insane. Why in the world would you do that? This is way worse than not having them close.
I'm sure there's a nice, healthy balance in there somewhere.
That may be true. All right, fair enough.
Either or, man.
Emotions.
Man.
No, thank
you. Jay, was that your? I guess
that was just one of them. I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think I've done 4.
Yeah, I can go. I just don't have anything similar.
You don't have anything to follow it.
I know, really now I gotta get out of this.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's super fair for me to put that there.
I just wanted to lump all the emotive stuff together.
Do you want me to do my number 4, B?
No, I got one. Maybe it's better than ending on that one, I think. So okay, I'll just go medium because the last one's super frivolous. This one's also frivolous, but it's a movie that I saw. I do middle school ministry in Seattle, and there's a movie out right now from a comedian named Bo Burnham, and it's called 8th Grade, and it follows an 8th grade girl and just kind of her day to day. Once again, it's peering into the life of one person, and once again, like what you guys are saying, it's pretty raw. I mean, they're not trying to sugarcoat anything. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's one person's experience. It's not a documentary. It's written by this comedian, and I was really excited to see it because I do middle school ministry, and I know a lot of 8th grade girls, and I don't know if I'm recommending it. It's one of those again where it's I liked it, you might like it. I'm not necessarily recommending it for everyone, but it definitely made me think, and even I've seen it a month ago, and I'm still thinking about it, and first of all, the creativity of Bo Burnham to be known as a stand-up and to have a ton of fans knowing him as a stand-up, and then to take this different route to be I'm also a serious movie maker and writer, and I love him a lot. and then the movie was so powerful, and it's just a different world for our youth. It's very different than when we were in 8th grade at different times, but it's just well made. And there was a scene at the end that made me laugh so hard I was crying, because it's about just your average 8th grader, not even her, not the main character, but she has a friend that's a boy, and he's being so awkward that I was like crying in the theater, laughing so hard, trying not to sound like a crazy person, because really wanted to do was like pop laugh, super loud, but there's only 3 people in the theater, so I was like creepily like kind of laughing and tearing up. But so watch the whole movie, or just skip up to the part where she's out at dinner with this other 8th grader. And anyway, so I like that movie, and if that sounds like something you might enjoy, then you should watch 8th Grade, the movie.
Nice.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it, Greg?
No, I've wanted to, but this ties into something that I'm not grateful for, which is stinking Movie Pass, man. That thing was awesome.
I did
now
not
it's a
fall for
disaster.
that. I did not fall for that.
That is a disaster. It was great for a while. Now I'm mad.
I'm sorry. I think I threw that on my little brother was.
Yeah, it was great. Your brother was right, and then a bunch of people tried to scam it, and now the whole thing doesn't work. So
people are the worst.
Yeah. But that's when 8th Grade came out, is right when my Movie Pass started going wacky. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm really excited to see it though.
Yeah, and you can rent it. I mean, you don't need to see it in the theater at all. But
perfect.
Anyway, that's mine.
And
I've read really amazing things about it. I've tried not to read a ton because I don't want to get spoiled about the movie. But
yeah.
I only have one more, so I think Greg, you should.
All right, so I'm
go
up.
next.
All right. I'm going to recommend this book called "Surprised by God" by Chris Green.
Okay.
It's wow, like it's one of the best books I've read in a long, long time.
Wow. It's
very short. It's incredibly dense.
It doesn't look very short.
Sorry. Here, if I go like this.
Oh yeah.
You just saw the cover.
I just saw was the cover, Jason.
Yeah. It looks like you are straining it. You
it's so heavy to hold up.
Yeah. You should probably work out. I'm blaming that on you. I don't know how.
Right. 3 pages long, Jason. So it's a very short book. I've been trying to figure out how to describe it for a long time. It's sort of in the vein of Tozer's Knowledge of the Holy.
Oh, I love that book.
Sort of like that. It has that feel in terms of like the guy writing it is they're calling them post-Pentecostals, but they're people who have grown up like through the Pentecostal movement and have come out the other side and engaged like liturgy, and some of those other kind of historical forces. And so like some of the stuff you're reading, you're just gonna like, it's like the most Calvinistic stuff you've ever read. And then you just keep reminding yourself like, this guy's a Pentecostal guy. That doesn't make sense. And then you're gonna read other stuff. It's like, this is the most Orthodox stuff I've ever like. It's just this amazing, like this kind of book I think could not have been written 40 years ago. It's the kind of book that could have been written maybe with St. John of the Cross, Jason, to tie it back into yours. Like it reads like that kind of book. Like it reads like a classic Christian spirituality kind of book, but it's a theology book. Like it's a straightforward, this is who God is kind of book. And it's incredibly dense. Like it's 83 pages. I've read it 3 times now. And I'm leading some interns through it. I picked it up this summer. I read through it, and I was one of those, I started reading it the way I read all my books. And then it was like, I got like 3 chapters in and I thought, I think there's more going on than what I noticed in the first 3 chapters. So then I started over and it's like, oh crap. Like there's like, you have to read it carefully because it's very dense. As a writer in this book, at least there's like no filler in this book. That's one of the reasons it's so short. Like he's making claims about God, but he's not giving you any illustrations. Like he's not like, he doesn't like, this is who God is. Here's a fun story about my family. Like there's none of that. Like it's just like it's just claim after claim after claim. And he just kind of stacks them on top of each other. I'm not sure I go with him on everything all the way yet, but it will absolutely like spark things in your brain about who God is that are really helpful. It's a brilliant book. I haven't read a book this good in a long, long time.
That's cool. I'm really excited about it because Knowledge of the Holy is one of the, Sounds
That's
very
where
similar.
I put it in my own like subjective categories. That's where I would stack it.
That's awesome. And a couple things. One is, Bianca, did you ever get the book Mirror to the Church?
Yes.
Awesome.
Sorry. I thank you. Mm-hmm.
I was just checking it because that was the last book that Greg was like, you got to read this. You got to read this. And I read it probably 2 years after he first mentioned it. So
That might be generous.
this book will probably come back up in 2012 or 27 or something.
If it comes up again in 2012, I'm leaving. That's all.
I'll read it. It'll
be the greatest podcast ever if it shows up again in 2012.
More coffee.
It's interesting because I ran across a pastor that was in Northern California. He calls himself a Presbycostal.
Yeah.
And it sounds similar to I
it's
forget the dude's name, but that's interesting that there's a
whole thing happening. God's doing some really interesting stuff all over the church.
That's awesome. I can't awesome. That's all I can say about that. I'm excited about that.
You guys will dig this one, I promise.
Yeah, I'll pick it up and read it 4 times.
Yeah, it's like $12 or something like that.
I just read it.
Done.
All right, this is not fair. I said I read it 3 times, not as a brag. But I said it 3 times because I wanted you to know that like it's that kind of density. Like it's not.
Yeah. I'll probably read the Potter series on the way to picking it up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I hate you guys both so much. All right, when do we do the podcast of things I'm not grateful for about?
Things I read about Greg.
I think you'll get more listeners for that one. I'm pretty confident.
Maybe.
At least my family would listen to that one.
No, I didn't.
All right, B, what's your 5th one?
Is this me or Jay? Okay.
It's B.
Okay, I can say, let's see. I got a few. First of all, I'm not going to use this one, but Detroiters this season, so good.
Good.
Yeah.
The funeral joke thing was fantastic.
Oh my gosh. I just love that show a lot. So I'm trying to figure out what to do next.
That was just a throw in. That's awesome.
We talk about Detroiters every single episode.
I know.
I wanted to say it was good.
Hey, when we're done recording, because mine is for sure not appropriate for recording, but when we're done recording, let's talk about our favorite joke from Detroit.
Okay, I'll have to think about it.
All right, go
Everyone
ahead.
should just watch Detroiters.
You really should.
It's so good. Okay, I'm gonna pick another movie because I have a few things. One's a book. I'm not sure if I'd recommend it. Anyway, Crazy Rich Asians. I don't know if you guys heard of it. I did not know anything about it. My friend just wanted to go. It does not seem like a movie I would normally choose to watch. So I didn't read it. I didn't know much about it. And it was so fun. It was just like a fun movie. I mean, it was a little like sad because obviously there has to be tension in it. But what they just watch it for what they're eating. I think they're in Singapore. And the food that they eat is just like, I want to be there and be eating all of that great street food. And then they also have like banquets and dumplings and stuff. Anyway, and it's just really prettily, is that a word? Shot also. Yes. It's very gorgeous to watch. I didn't know any of the actors except for one of them, or actually a few are kind of people you've seen before. There's a Daily Show guy and the guy from Silicon Valley and Ken. But the main people I had never seen before. And I just enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was funny and fun. And I was surprised that I liked it so much, having known nothing. I was just trying to be nice.
And because you usually hate Asian people, right?
That's not what I was going for. Well, I was actually happy to contribute to like who's ever keeping these numbers, being like, no one's going to watch a movie with X minority, and I'm like, that's not true. And my friend wanted to see because she read the book, and it was very good, not surprisingly good, just good. It was just a good movie, and people should be making all the movies, and people will see them. People who like movies will go see them. So anyway, that's
Jason,
just.
Did you see this movie?
I have not. I haven't seen a movie since Solo, I think, in the theater.
I think Malia would like it.
I think that's true.
You were trying to get to the theater to get to that new Mission Impossible. It couldn't
Oh
happen.
my gosh, that
Would
movie is
you-
amazing.
Is it?
By the
Like,
way, yeah, that's the best
just-
Mission Impossible.
we've just resigned. We
That's
could
fair. That's fair.
we could just rent movies.
That's also true.
You win, whoever you are.
So Bianca, I saw this in the theater as well.
Oh, good.
Abby and I went on a date day, like tried to use Movie Pass for these things, and
Yeah.
and so I got to go see this one, and I had the exact same experience you did. I saw like the previews for it. I knew like the cultural stuff around it a little bit, and I was like, it was legitimately like it was a standard love story in a bunch of ways, but all the set pieces that go with a standard love story were fantastic, and it was so cool.
Yeah.
And it did make you think, like, is this what Singapore is like? Like, holy cow!
Seriously, I want to go there.
Wow.
I mean, I always wanted to go to Singapore, but
Yeah,
they showed all. Oh, no, I don't know if they showed all the parts, but they showed, like a lot of what's going on in that city, and
yeah.
even just the what do they call it? The cityscape. Just the way the buildings look like they're in the future or something.
It's crazy. And then just the amount of
Mhm.
money involved in that movie. When they say crazy rich, they're not lying. Like, that's a lot
No,
of
they
money.
live opulently. And then they even did like a tiny mini like throwaway line about kind of the history of how the Chinese people came from Beijing, I think, and then down to Singapore and pretty much just built Singapore.
Uh-huh.
And even that like little line made me want to read all the books on like, what was that? When was that? Who were those people? And like, how did they, what did this look like before they got there? And anyway, so it made me really curious about the history of Singapore as well.
I do have a small confession.
Oh, let's hear it.
I fell asleep during the movie
Oh no.
at the theater, and my wife woke me up and said, "You can't snore in the theater."
Sure. Yeah.
So then I stayed awake the rest of the time, but I did doze for a half a second in the middle.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think it's
so
because the movie
wild.
was bad. I think I was just really tired. I'm
Yeah.
at that age where I can just fall asleep anywhere at any time now. So.
Yeah, and it's a dark room.
And I think that's your like absolute statement on romantic comedies.
Yeah. Exactly.
I snore at you.
Yeah, that's how I feel about romantic comedy.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was
That
fun.
was a
It
good
checked
one.
off all the boxes you wanted to check off in a romantic
Yeah, I
comedy.
thought it was good.
All right, my last one is we did a preaching series on like Psalms, and so I preached a bunch on laments, and then Ben Harper and Charlie Musselwhite came out with their second album, and together, and Charlie Musselwhite's just a blues musician that plays the harmonica, and Ben Harper, fly guitar.
I've heard of him.
He's good. But their first album together, you know how neither one of them shined. You know what I mean? Like the first album, I was kind of underwhelmed, like because Ben Harper is better by himself, and probably this Charlie Musselwhite is better by himself. But the second one, it came off. It's a really good album. There's not a bad track on it, and it ties in with I don't know. We've talked about this a bunch about how Christian worship and Christian like music doesn't have lament anymore. Like that's what Bono and Eugene Peterson
Yeah, that's right.
brought up in kind of jazz. And the blues are that. They just they have a master's degree in lament. And it's just looking at things and vocalizing like pains and putting words to feelings that are hurt. In new ways, just new angles to look at it. And it's cool that this is a solid, just brand new blues album. And the name of it is No Mercy in This Land. And the title track is ridiculous. So if you only have time to listen to one song, listen to the title track, No Mercy in This Land.
Awesome.
So that's, yeah. I wanted to end on like a little bit of happier, but
Music.
I couldn't get there. Blues, yeah.
The Lamenting Blues.
Yep.
I'll listen to it today.
I will probably not, but I will listen to it at some point.
Yep.
No Mercy in This Land. I like that. I like that title.
Yeah.
Mine. Oh man, I was between two things. I'll just say that Flight of the Conchords released a new song that we all looked at.
We did listen to that.
We'll file this one away
I
when
did
it gets
listen to
ready
it.
for
Yeah,
season
yeah.
2. That is like a thing that made me very, very happy. But now I'll go with the Book of Esther. We're preaching Old Testament stuff
Awesome.
all fall. We're trying to. I realized, like, as we were setting up our fall series, that the liturgy has like some really interesting Old Testament readings, and they're kind of broken off into characters. So I decided to do an Old Testament series that was tied to those characters, but not to those readings exactly. And so we did 4 weeks on Solomon, and now we're going to do 2 weeks on Esther. And man, I taught on Esther this week, and it's just an amazing story. Like it's like I've read Esther before, especially when I was younger for some reason. Like I knew the story of Esther from whatever. But reading it carefully as an adult, getting ready to teach it, it's like it's a brilliant. It's just such a well-told story. Like I read I was looking, like I was researching it a bit on some commentators and stuff, and a lot of commentators call it like a historical novella. And it was like, oh, that's exactly how it reads. It has these like all these elements. There's heroes and villains, and but right in the middle of it, Esther has this line that the sort of the interaction between her and Mordecai in the middle of the story is Mordecai saying, maybe this is exactly why you've become queen, right? Like maybe you've been put here for exactly this purpose. And then she sort of has this courageous response to that and says, yes, you guys go pray and fast for me, and I'll go talk to the king. And if I die, I die. And I just remember thinking like, oh man, like that's such an amazing sort of faithful response to the truth, right? To being told like, this is the scenario you're in. And it sounds like other Old Testament figures that say things like that along the way too. And it just occurred, like I preached on this week, so it's like fresh in my head. But the idea that that we have faith when it sort of works for us or when it's good for us, and that's the way we talk about faith a lot. And like when we try to convert people to faith, this is the language we use all the time. But there's this element of faith that is courage building and honest, even when it might not work for us, right? That even aware that it may fail or it may not produce the result we want, that faith still has this amazing sort of value to us, and that we're still called to this kind of faithfulness. And I don't know, it's to think of like a 14 or 15-year-old girl in that spot being able to stand up to the king to tell him, you can't kill my people. There's just like, I don't know. There's just, I was super grateful for Esther's witness this week, and the telling and the way Esther was told, and the reminder and the challenge that for me, a lot of times faith is about my own comfort, and that's not really what faith is about.
Is the series, are you going to do a few weeks on Esther, or she was this week and that was the one?
We're going to do 2 weeks on Esther.
Oh, okay. Are you preaching on it?
I preached on this week. We have a guest preacher who's like a sort of an expert on Hebrew festivals and stuff to talk about it next week.
Oh, okay.
Because Esther is where the festival Purim comes from.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
And so she does a lot of like, she does like guided Seder meals and Purim meals and stuff like that. So she's gonna teach through sort of what that is and then retell the story of Esther. So
yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Every time I read it, I'm always surprised. Like, this is in the Bible. Like,
right?
It's just a story. I mean, that's actually why Gospels are good for teaching youth, because it's literally just a story. You don't need to be reading in between the lines. And Esther's the same way. I like it for a lot of reasons.
Yep. And it's so well told.
I feel like Esther's like the seed behind so many other stories. Like I like, like it's like like a lot of people, like the Godfather of blues, or like like whatever. I feel like Esther's like the godmother of just that genre or that type of storytelling, and it's all those are my favorite stories.
Yeah, it's totally true. I got thinking about it this week, Jason, and there's like a bunch of those. Like the Princess Bride, like the premise for the Princess Bride is almost the same as that they have to scour the land for the most beautiful woman to become princess. That's like Esther. And then you have like these evil villains who want to kill all the people. And then you have these evil kings who are happy to kill it. Like it's like there's all these like what we'd call like tropes or types or whatever now. But that Esther sort of starts so many of those or is involved in so many of those. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and the depressingly ironic twist,
Yep.
or a hopeful twist, depending on.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy. It's dark.
Yeah, and right when you think the story is really good, it takes this terrible turn. And right when you think it's totally lost, it takes this turn again. And it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, thanks, Greg.
Yep, that's an amazing story. All right, is that all 5 of ours?
That's all 5.
5.
All right. The unsaid one that we all have this week is that we are grateful to be back. I think that's like one of my greatest gratefulnesses is to be able to talk to you guys again. So, wow. Hopefully you enjoy this first episode of season 3. If you do, subscribe, spread the word, tell your friends, put it on Facebook, Instagram it, whatever.
And do our recommendations too.
Do our recommendations. Listen to them. Get back to us. Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
You can get a hold of me at Outpostings on Twitter or at Greg Richards 77 on Instagram. And also Bianca has set up a Twitter account for us, so you can also tweet straight to, what is it called?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I
tried to give you a run up.
I know. I think it's called Week in Gratitude. Week in Gratitude.
At Week in Gratitude.
Yeah, let us know.
In Gratitude. So find us in any of those places. Send us if you think there's things that we should watch or recommendations we should take. Go ahead and send them to us, and we'll see you back here next week, hopefully. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.